The most divisive game I reviewed thus far. This game's entire premise was non-original, but it advertised itself on technical features, like the hordes. Yes, it's gorgeous. Holy shit, it's gorgeous. Especially with the piranha-like nature of the hordes, with the way they devour you. I always imagine only bones being left behind after the horde was finished with you. And while yes, this game is technologically impressive at times, it all comes with a price. From bad optimization to airheaded programming, things like screen tearing to brain dead AI. With all things considered, flaws included, there are things to like here, but it does stress the console greatly to achieve these feats. And I wonder whether or not polish could have been applied better. For this, I'm going to go through the game's pros and its cons. Because this game has a lot of good ideas and has a lot of bad ones. And these are the ones I found most notable. Beginning with the pros. Gameplay. Straight up what you're doing in the game's fun. Fun enough anyway. The gunplay has a lot of impact, especially because of the deep sound that the gun makes when you're shooting. This applies more so to the automatic weapons than to the semis. Melee combat, being somewhat simple, is very satisfying, and once you get certain skills, exploitable. There are a lot of upgrades to go through, and lots of crafting recipes for your melee weapons. Lots of tossables, so you have a lot of tools at your disposal. The hordes are insane, both as boss-type enemies and world obstacles. They have routes and schedules that they adhere to and can be exploited. They are naturally implemented into the environments, planting the native predators. And they almost feel as though they're an invasive species. You can see the hordes just dominate everything they come across, including the other zombie variants and humans. Usually, both of these would mulch a single zombie in a fight. The little details are also interesting and very much appreciated, like the snow or the random encounters you can come across in the world. While frustrating, it provided incentive to knock over the camps and clear fast travel routes. As for the encounters themselves, range in novelty, one being getting stuck in one of those fucking wire traps that hang you by your foot, to being shot off your bike by a sniper in a tree. Driving is pretty fun. The bike customization is amazing as well. Of course, this is what you're going to be doing most of the game. You're going to have to, at times, refuel and maintain your bike in the field, which can lead to some fun events, but overall wasn't really that big a deal for me. But I do like the things that you can get for it, like the upgrades, the accents, and the swappable parts. Especially the accents. I really do like the accents. Another thing I liked regarding the story was Boozer. Boozer was the only character that had any real arc. He went from this kind of outcast biker to a leader. And overall, the game is full of cheesy lines and dialogue, but the acting itself was amazing. And full disclosure, it's nice to hear Starkiller again. Anyway, with that in mind, the sound here is really good. The guns are the star of the show, the way they just rattle off as you're shooting. They sound really loud, they shoot really hard. Which can catch you by surprise a couple times, it happens, but the problem is these random encounters are a little repetitive and they cycle a lot. And at least for me, having a neat little zombie type, which is the newt, adds to this whole animalistic nature that they only attack you when you're weakened. They're exploitive creatures because they cannot even fight the adult zombie variants. Oh, and this might be a little bit divisive, but I like the basic shooting on the bike. It's the only aiming system that I can use that doesn't make me crash into stuff while remaining decently accurate. So good job there. The targeting system is very basic. The closer an enemy gets, the more accurate your target will become. So I think it's very simple, but very manageable, especially when you're driving as fast as you are on these roads. The bike controls very smoothly. It has a lot of really good drifting in it. And it's a lot of fun when you get that nitrous booster, but it is held back by the technical issues with the game, especially when you're going really, really fast. And the soundtrack of the game is pretty damn good too, with both featured songs and musical flares in battle. Cons. The pros, all the pros that I spoke of previously all come with a few caveats, like the gunplay for example. The focus system, while it does add a little bit of fun factor and badassery to the gunplay, it does sort of act like a major crutch. In fact, it is a major crutch, and without it I think certain encounters would be much more difficult. I think the problem here is that there's no, perhaps, auto-aim or lock system, or some type of aim assist when you're in fights. I don't know. I don't think the DualShock is quite accurate enough for this, because I remember them doing something for Killzone Shadowfall and having a similar trouble with aiming. Anyway, when fighting the hordes or large targets, the aiming itself is okay, it works fine. But for smaller targets, it doesn't work out very well. And this is a small issue, but I do not like the reticle they use for the machine gun. It's a little too big, and it's very difficult to figure out where you're aiming and where most of your shots are going. And this is another nitpick. So the most effective guns tend to be automatic, both for capacity and power.
How about we just leave you here to bleed out, huh? Make all the freaks out here happy, yeah? Huh? Isn't that what you want? Just go straight to hell! Oh, yeah, nice.
Along with missions and cutscenes, while being beautiful in their own right, have this sense of being disjointed. Almost like they were supposed to be choices. Or supposed to be, I don't know, just other cutscenes that just weren't there, or even missions. The one I recall most is, if you go back to the end of the game, there's this cutscene where Deacon jumps on the back of a truck. And it looks like you're going to have an on-rail sequence, but instead, you just sort of teleport forward to the next cutscene where the truck explodes, which seemed a little odd. But there really isn't much reward, save for a stat upgrade, and while yes, collectively speaking, the stat upgrades do make a large difference, gameplay-wise they don't. But I will grant you, fighting them is very thrilling, but fighting hordes beyond that lacks any real purpose. And like I said, once you get past a certain point, usually the third area of the map, maybe part of the second area of the map, the hordes are pretty small and pretty easy to kill, especially when you have all the horde weapons.
Here, catch!
back to the writing. While the actual dialogue, save for a few notable bits, were really corny, very cringy, I could not take it seriously. But other parts are spectacular. One notable was that drunken scene with Boozer staring down the horde with Deacon on a highway. Very good moment. But the end speech and a lot of the love scenes seemed a little awkward. Almost like the chemistry doesn't exist there. Another thing, the weapons and upgrade leveling seem a little arbitrary to me, almost like they're hard grind walls to keep you playing longer, especially when they also double that you get a shitload of currency on top of that. But also, speaking of sound, while I do like the soundtracks in the game, they're really good. Even the featured songs I kind of liked, though I don't think the moments were as earned. I think some of the technical shit was not very good. Like, I had a lot of syncing issues, in fact. I had to stop playing to get the game to sync with its own audio again.
We're going over the papers, the ones from Sherman's camp. There's a mine that was getting ready to expand.
Sure, and there's probably explosives stored on site.
Yeah. Except now Schizo tells me we may have lost 2 men on the inside.
Focus more on straight up battle aspect of the game. Stealthing isn't all that fun, and I think putting time into that takes away from the straight up fun horde battles. Another thing, optimize, rein something in if you must. Because I think that's where this game is strongest, is going and battling those giant hordes. You're coming out amongst a series of very well-known PlayStation exclusives, all of them very well received and very well polished games. Yes, those studios are larger, but that's the price of standing shoulder to shoulder with bigger game developers. Especially with these comparisons to Red Dead that you yourself invite. Perhaps you didn't do it on purpose, but that's the unfortunate nature of coming out a couple months behind the biggest game to come out in a couple years. And it also invites a lot of other comparisons to other exclusive titles. So I don't think this game is doing anything good for itself when it's doing this. And this is because it never quite matches up to any of those competitors in any particular area. While I think it has a lot of technical achievements under its belt, I think there's a lot of hiccups, and it's still, even at its peak, it doesn't outperform the other technical achievements made by other video games. Also, create a story that is more complex. Explore the conspiracy shit some more. Fuck that word. Another thing, make the repeatable horde challenges, or at least make them all bigger across the map to make them more of an obstacle and more satisfying as an endgame boss, if that was the original intention. Make the game harder.
Okay, one nest done.
You marketed yourself as a hard game, and on its hardest difficulty, it's not that hard. Really, as soon as you get the basics down, it's pretty easy. Sure, the update will address some of this, but goddamn, it's a little late, and it's a little rushed. But the hordes were so touted as features, and they are remaining interesting and throughout the game. In fact, there's lots of points where they are featured as these in-game cutscenes, and they look incredible, and even out of cutscenes they look insane. They're touted as this core feature, and I feel like they're not really. They're more of an in-game obstacle, you know, part of the scenery. And maybe that was the original intention, but I think there should be more game aspects to them, more to earn from destroying them. Maybe make them bigger, make them harder. Because fighting them is pretty damn fun. Improve the controls and the clumsy weapon wheels. Because fighting the hordes is pretty damn fun. Improve the controls of the aiming and the clumsy weapon wheel.
There's gotta be a nest in
And while I do like Deacon's ramblings, they are somewhat repetitive, and they seem like they're calling shit out that's either not there or that I've passed in is 2 miles back. Like, maybe do it after an event like clearing a horde or a bandit camp.
I just think it's time you... Oh, shit. One more. Okay, I think that's all of them.
So tone down the frequency, maybe make them earlier, compensate for that distance. Anyway, conclusion.
Finally, Jesus.
It has a lot of great qualities, but it's more like a $30, maybe at most $40 game. And while I think it's pretty solid in mechanics, it, drawn in comparison to other better games, only makes this whole review harsher. I like the game during its intense bullet spraying moments, but it has to follow a standard and thus can't let any one of its features be given depth. I know many of you will comment about the recently added survival mode. While only playing it for a few hours, I got a taste of what to expect. It highly emphasizes the stealth aspect of the game, which I think is a bit weak, and on top of that, it decentralizes a lot of the in-game activities, like, for example, clearing nests, fighting hordes, or even bandit caves. I mean, maybe not the bandits because of their random encounters, but I don't think the survival mode was well thought out. I think general improvements to that could be adding fast travel back, for example, in HUD. I don't like the HUD. I like to know where Deacon's health's at. So, not a big fan. Though I do acknowledge that this game is getting better and better and that new challenges are coming. So, good on them for that. And I think the game has a good future ahead of it because it has a very passionate studio behind it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and leave your criticisms. Have a good day.